So one of the most important football games of the season is coming right up. It's the Championship playoff. The team that wins the Championship playoff gets promoted to the Premier League, gets all of the money associated with that, and probably gets relegated the following season. But let's put that aside for 1 second. The question on most people's mind is, who is that team going to be? So rather than just give you an opinion, I went off and dug up 25 years worth of playoff data to get those answers. And if you want to know what that is, just watch the rest of this video. So before we talk about the specific statistics, let's give you some detail behind those statistics and also some stuff that's important. Because it is possible to look at one particular path that a team could have to the Premier League and work out all of the individual odds on that particular match and the goals and stuff like that, and then multiply that by the next. But that's pretty complicated. So I'm adopting a simpler approach here, which is to look at 25 years worth of statistics, look at all of the key elements of those statistics, and then, put those forward. I'm going to talk you through each of the individual elements that I looked at when I was producing this video. But it's also important to understand that there are only 4 teams in the playoff. So you've got a 25% chance of being promoted, technically, if all teams are even. And you've got a 50% chance of reaching the final. But of course, not all teams are even, as we will begin to look at. There's not an equal chance of all of this occurring. And therefore, if a team has a more than a 25% chance, or has the characteristics of more than a 25% chance of getting promoted, then that's obviously good, a statistic that is in their favour. And if it's lower than that, then it's bad. And likewise, there's 2 teams are going to reach the final, so there's a 50% chance that could happen to any of those 4 teams. So any statistic above 50% is good, and below that is bad. So just a brief understanding of exactly how that data was collected, how we're going to use it, and also some of the key metrics that you need to understand. But let's have a look at that data. So the first thing I did was look at long-term goal difference. And the way that I've done that is I've gone into the league table. I've looked at the league table. I looked for goals for and goals against. I've averaged those out and then looked at the difference between those two. And what you can see is it sort of gives a bit of a mixed picture, because if we look below a net goal difference of 0.6 or lower, then we end up in this situation where the outcome is a bit mixed. It's not sort of saying, oh yeah, this is definitely a positive. However, if you look towards the top of that table, when you can see that the goal difference is significantly higher, then that does have a pretty positive impact on the scheme of things. But this is looking at the whole of the season, so it's not directly relevant to what is going on at this particular moment in time. However, it does give an indicator. So teams that are banging in the goals left, right and centre and have a reasonable defence are obviously going to fare better than those that don't. But this is the table that comes up if you're looking at the average goal difference over the course of a season. It's a bit of a mixed picture, so really we need to dig a little bit deeper. So next I'm looking at current form, and the way that I'm judging current form is I'm looking at the last 5 matches, and I'm saying we're going to award a 1 for a win, a -1 for a loss, and a 0 for a draw. And then obviously if we look at the table, the higher number of points you've got, the better form that you've got, however you manage to get there. But as we go down the table, then the worst form that you've got. And that sort of reflects, it's a fairly simplistic way of doing things, but obviously there's this theory that if you're carrying loads of momentum into the playoffs, then you will play a little bit better. And I think that 5 games is a reasonable measure of that momentum. And when you look at this data, you can see again, it's a little bit mixed. There's a general trend that if you have really good form, then you're going to stand a much better chance of either getting to the final or being promoted. And if you're generally much worse form, then that doesn't sort of bode particularly well anyway. However, the problem is, because we're using this scoring system and it's only over 5 matches, I don't think that it really cuts through and gives you clarity on whether a team is sort of currently in form necessarily and the impact that it has. So sometimes it makes sense to simplify things even more and to recut it and look at the data in a slightly different way. So that's what we're going to do on the next slide. Is we're going to have a closer look. We're going to simplify what we define as good form and see what impact that has on the chances of being promoted or actually reaching the final. So in that previous table, we were looking at individual results over those 5 matches. But what I've done in this table is I've just cut it down. I basically said, here's a threshold, and the threshold was 2, or scoring 2 based upon what you saw in that last table, or not, or scoring below that. And so therefore, if you look at teams that have scored 2 or above based upon the formula that I gave you in the last table, which is really simple, just 1 for a win, -1 for a loss, you can see that teams that score 2 or above do actually stand a much better chance. So form is relevant. And teams that didn't perform particularly well recently, you can see that that has a particularly negative impact. And again, remind yourself here that, if the whole thing was random, you'd have a 25% chance of being promoted and a 50% chance of reaching the final. So when you look at data like this, you can see that where it exceeds or falls below those levels, that recent form is definitely having an impact on the chances of either being promoted or getting to the final. So I thought, rather than adding and deducting points and then cutting it this way and doing it, let's try and simplify this even further. It's always a useful thing to do. Whenever you're doing any strategy, try and find the lowest common denominator, simplify things as much as possible, and see if you can describe what's going on. It's always a great way of looking at statistics. So what I've done with this table is I've just asked a really basic question, which is, has the team lost in any of the last 3 matches? And if we get a yes rather than a no, then you can see that that's a significant impact on their ability to perform well at the playoffs. In fact, if you have not lost a match in the last 3, then your chances of progressing and moving forward is pretty much double the chance if you have actually lost one. So yeah, momentum, form, confidence, all of those things do seem to play a factor in how the playoffs are going to play out. So yeah, simplifying things even further gives us this set of results. So there's a well understood phenomenon in football called home advantage. It's worth about 0.4 of a goal on average. And the run of the rule of thumb on this particular thing is that if you're playing at home, then you've got an advantage against the away team. However, that effect doesn't really seem to take place in the playoffs for a very obvious reason. And this is the same reason that away goals were included in European competition, because it incentivizes and averages out the results over a 2-legged contest. Because if you're in a situation where you have to play over 2 legs and you're playing at home in the second leg, that significantly skews things to your advantage, because obviously when you're playing away, you can play a really tight match, try not to concede any goals, park the bus in front of the goal and just sort of, do whatever you can to nullify that home advantage. And then of course, when you come back home, you've got the crowd with you, you've got home advantage, and you can really go for it. And plus you also know what your objective is. You know what you have to do in order to progress to the next stage. So when we look at playing away, which is what the teams further down are forced to do on the first leg, you can see that that's a significant disadvantage to them. And for the teams that finish 3rd and 4th, who will play home in the second leg, that is a significant advantage. So yeah, it's sort of skewed against the teams that are finishing further down the league, but that's sort of what you would expect, because ultimately you don't want to play all season for absolutely nothing. But ultimately, the way those fixtures are arranged does have a significant impact on whether those teams are likely to progress, as that table will show you. So this was one of the things that I wasn't sure whether I would find this or not. But when you look at it, it's pretty obvious in hindsight. But you can't assume anything when you're looking at statistics. It's really important to make sure that you don't prejudge them. So when I ran the data and looked at where the teams finished in the league in the regular season, I wondered if there was a correlation between that and the chance of them being promoted. And of course there is. It's a near perfect correlation of teams either progressing to the final or actually getting promoted. So the team in 3rd has a better chance than the team in 4th, and the team in 4th has a better chance than the team in 5th, and the team in 5th has a better chance than the team in 6th. And when we look at those statistics, that sort of seems obvious, because obviously the better team over the course of the season would have finished a little bit higher, but it doesn't account for like the most recent form necessarily. However, that correlation does exist. And also, this is sort of exacerbated by what we mentioned in the previous slide, which was that teams 3 and 4 are going to play their second leg at home. So they can just throw everything at the team which is technically inferior. And therefore they know exactly what their objectives, what they have to do, and they can do all of that in the second leg at home, which necessarily progresses them to the final, where it becomes a little bit more, not random, but, you know, all of those biases disappear when those teams reach the final. But necessarily, if we look at league position, it's a near perfect correlation between position and the chance of either being promoted or getting to the final. So what I've tried to do here is build up a pattern of statistics that will give you information as to which teams are most likely to win the playoffs. And always remember that these are percentages. So even if you've got a 60% chance of something happening, it also means you've got a 40% chance of it not happening. So everything could be stacked in your favour, and then just something freakish happens and your whole world falls apart. But what we can see through all of these statistics is that, you know, over the course of the season, you know, one of the hardest things must be if you play well throughout the whole of the season and then you just don't quite make it towards the end and you end up in the playoffs. But the statistics show you that in fact there is a fair correlation between finishing position and progressing through the playoffs, winning the final and getting to the Premier League. But of course there's always that area of ambiguity that may not happen. But some of that is countered by the structure of the playoffs and the fact that third and fourth teams get to play their second game at home, and that's a significant advantage. When those third and fourth teams get to the final, however, you know, all of a sudden that becomes a slightly different game, because you're looking at two teams that have finished well and have probably done well over the course of the season. It becomes a bit of a tighter match. So you may want to extend those form windows to be a little bit wider, because this year, for example, we have Millwall and Southampton in third and fourth place. And Southampton are 20 matches unbeaten or something like that. So you'd sort of have to favour Southampton if they get to the final, which it looks like they probably will. Unfortunately for the team in sixth place, that's probably not going to happen, because you're going to have to play the team in third place and you're going to have to play them at home first and away second, and therefore that is stacked significantly against you. But that's probably the reason that it was done that way. Anyhow, we've gone through a lot of statistics there. I've given you a big steer on things that are important and not so important, and I hope that helps you find a winner in this year's Championship playoffs.